Okay.
All right. So we're going to go through a conversation for all about how to overcome mental darkness, the low and draining moods that include like hopelessness, despair, depression, guilt, shame, all of those things. And one of the things that's important to know is that the average emotion only lasts a minute and a half. After that, you have to keep re-energizing it and recharging it with your thoughts. And people do this unconsciously. So we need to kind of rewire those unconscious thoughts so we're not creating gloomy moods, because we need to get to those ingredients that are creating this recipe of mental darkness. So I like to just first of all get clear on how it's created. Like, I ask somebody, if they've mastered these dark emotions, I'd say, help me learn it. Like, what do you have to do with your body or posture to make it worse? And they'd be like, curl your body and look down, clench your jaw, hold your breath, have a depressing couch that you just lay in, So I just try to get clear. With them so that they can make the connection. They're like, oh, this is how I do it. Right. Because even putting myself in those postures can make me feel a certain way. Right. So then I might say, if you wanted to, I refer this to going into like the woods of mental darkness. Like this is how you enter the woods of mental darkness. Now, if I wanted to get out of the woods, what would I do with my body? And they'd be like, take a huge breath, play a happy song or a video, stand up tall and extend yourself, do some dance moves, go for a walk outdoors, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So I try to get clear on that. And then I just say, what do you focus on? What do you have to focus on and pay attention to create this? And people will typically describe that it's focusing on a negative past pain, past failure, past hardship, past trauma, past regret, memories that made you sad, all of this kind of stuff, focusing on the things that you can't control, focusing on everything working against you, and the key here is that you have to stop it, catch it, and switch it, right? So this is the focus habit that creates these depressing moods. You have to stop it, catch it, switch it. And so we make it very clear that this will be the process for you to get out of the mental darkness when you go there. And I'll ask, what do you tell yourself, right? And people say, well, I'll tell myself, I don't deserve to be happy. Things shouldn't be this way. I'm the worst person ever. Things will only get worse. I don't deserve good things. I'll never be successful. I'm responsible for making everyone happy. Nobody loves me. Things have to be perfect. It's not okay to be different, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Like people tell themselves all kinds of stuff like this, right? So I just want them to I want them to get clear on their own pattern so that they can get power over their own pattern. And then, and then I say, is there anything else you do that makes things worse? And why are all these things a bad idea? So they'll do things like they'll embellish their victimhood stories. They'll exaggerate and generalize. They'll make excuses. They'll give themselves unrealistic expectations. They resist the challenge to change and grow. They're always looking for evidence to support their story that they're telling themselves. They're comparing themselves. They're doing upward social comparison, which means you compare yourselves to people that are doing better off rather than people that are doing worse off than you, right? They ignore the evidence that they're only making things worse with this pattern. They choose to be indifferent to wisdom. They choose to be indifferent to understanding their pain. They're indifferent to it. They're just not making an effort for it, right? Sometimes they have unhealthy lifestyles that contribute. They'll just be like, they drink a lot. They eat a huge bin of expired yogurt and feel depressed. I don't know what it is, but people could be doing tons of different things, right? So we want to get clear on the pattern, and then we want to get clear on, how has this actually served your benefit? Because it has. What is the value? What do you gain from this pattern? Right? There's hidden benefits to being negative. That's why people get addicted to it. It helps you connect with other people. You all of a sudden you're important to other people who want to help. You become a big deal in their life. They shower you with sympathy and attention, right? And you might relish that to your own detriment. They commiserate with you. Maybe this pattern soothes some of your fears. Maybe you use it as justification to be irresponsible and indulge in booze, video games, just to give yourself a break from a much deserved break from your painful emotions. And maybe you use it as an excuse to avoid uncomfortable stuff, right? So we kind of get clear on, what benefits have you gotten from it? Are there better ways to get those benefits? Of course there are. And we can chat about that. So once we get to this point, I might ask them, why is it an absolute must that we overcome this and replace it with something better right now? And do you have any obstacles to it? Are there any blocks in your mind when you think about giving this up? And a lot of times people have anxiety about the unknown, or they have anxiety that they won't get what benefits they're receiving from this habit, they won't receive, right? So we want to just address those fears in advance. Okay. In terms of, we're going to be doing substitution for something better, not removing this habit and the benefits completely, right? So, because when people are afraid, they shut down, and it stops them from moving forward. So we just want to make sure that we don't have anything like that holding us back. And I'll tell people, look, we need to see this thing for what it is. See it for what it is. And you can keep this mentality as long as you want, argue for it, defend it, try to create a story about how it's correct and true, it's the right way to live. But the moment you decide you want to get to the next level, you have to choose a new mentality that'll get you where you want. You have to get out of the mental darkness.
Yeah.
Right. It was an adventure to go there. And typically you've got to interrupt it and you've got to challenge it. Stop it, catch it. And then we're going to challenge it with, what do I want and what's a better way to get what I want? And, what are better things to focus on, tell yourself, do with your body, et cetera, right? You can indulge in this emotion for, I say 60 seconds, and that's all you need, and then move on. But here's what it ultimately comes down to. There's treasure in those dark emotions. It's like going into that dark, mystical forest. You go in there, and the treasure is you gain perspective. The treasure is you gain insights. The treasure is you gain experiences that can help you be relatable to others and inspire others. All of these things can serve a greater good. Many people don't have the courage to be with those uncomfortable emotions like depression and guilt and hopelessness, right? They bypass those emotions. But I would say to somebody, you have the strength to go into the darkness, right? But just be careful that the darkness doesn't consume you. Just like drinking too much wine, too much consumption of this stuff can have a reverse effect. We need to get those treasures, then leave the darkness so you can share those treasures with the rest of the world. Now, this is kind of a basic review of some of our previous conversation at this point. Now, here's what we do with this next. Some part of their mind will still think that this behavior is a good idea, typically. Now, there's also biological depression, like you're just overwhelmed, you need rest, right? It says, as I said before, depressed could also be interpreted as deep rest. That's what you need right now. And that's a little bit different, right? Like sometimes there's just a biological version of depression, but if it's really sort of mentally generated, then oftentimes there's parts of them that are committed to very specific perspectives. So what we want to do is debate those perspectives. We want to come out, and I would position it like this. If you're talking to a depressed person, you just say to them, hey, look, I'm wondering if I could get your help. Okay. I'm practicing as a coach and I need somebody to help me out. Would you be willing to do that for me? People who are in mental darkness are more likely to help others than they are to help themselves. Why? Because they often don't feel they deserve help, right? But they will feel you do.
Right.
So you want to, and they will be able to express their love in that way. So we want to be able to take that angle in and just say, okay, here's what I'm going to be tested on. I need to come up with as many reasons as possible why it's a bad idea to focus on what you can't control. Why is that a bad idea? And then you just do I go, you go, and you share back and forth. And people who indulge in mental darkness come up with the best stuff. It's just amazing for this. All
Super
right.
insightful.
Yeah. So why don't we do number one together? Okay. We're going to pretend like we're on a game show and we need to come up with the best answers to win the big money. And, you know, so I want you to imagine that, you know, the pressure's on the line. We got to come up with arguments. We're going to take turns. Why is it a bad idea to focus on what you can't control? Monica, what's your thoughts? Why is it a bad idea?
Because it essentially disables you. It's kind of like it holds you back from actually finding solutions.
Yes. I love your use of really, really persuasive language. It disables me. Okay. Like, I don't want to disable myself. What? Okay. Hold on. I'm not doing this. Whatever this thing is, I'm not indulging in it. Right.
Right.
Excellent. I think, all right, over to me. It can put you into a cycle of continuous worry, which can eventually lead you to suicide. Focusing on what you can't control. All right, back over to you.
I would say it also like closes you off to like life opportunity because we don't actually have control over things. So you trying to constantly seek that control is like chasing your own tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's an opportunity cost of this. Opportunity cost.
That's a good way to put it. Opportunity cost. Yeah. I like that.
Right. I'd say lowering the mood lowers creativity and ability to connect with others. You lose opportunity to connect with your most loved ones in life in a meaningful way.
I would say, why is it a bad idea for you to focus on what you can't control? I think it just also it takes, like, it's kind of like you giving up responsibility for your attitude in a way as well. So it's kind of like this is happening to me versus for me kind of thing, like that kind of that perspective.
Yeah, you're surrendering your responsible call to action in this life by distracting yourself with something you can't do anything about, right? And the opportunity cost is when you're doing that, you're not focusing on what you can control.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it creates a disempowering reality. Like what you focus on creates reality to you. What you don't pay attention to does not exist to you in your reality. So the more you pay attention to this stuff, the more troublesome life and reality becomes. Right. The darkness takes on reality. Okay, perfect. That's question number one. And that's one of the ingredients. And this is why I'm trying to create a good argument why it's a bad idea to focus on what you can't control, because some part of people typically believes this is a good idea, right? They think it's a good idea to create anxiety and stuff like that, because then you'll do something about it. And I'm like, you know, anxiety is the evil twin of prudence. You want to be able to acknowledge these threats, but then you want to quickly transition into how you can take preventative action to reduce non-essential risk. Okay. So it's like, we don't want to get too distracted with step one. Okay. Now, argument number two, maybe we'll do two answers each on this one. Okay. Why is it a bad idea to focus on what you don't have?
Because then you're diminishing like what you do have and the gratitude that comes with what you actually do have.
Yeah, you lose that perspective.
Oh, I had a train of thought. I would say also then you're focused on, I feel like you're focused on getting material things to achieve happiness, like earning things or buying things and having them, but they're
Mhm.
fleeting.
Yeah, yeah, you get caught up in that cycle of uh, desires for worldly possessions, which are all just borrowed dust. I mean, everything is just dust to dust anyway. So I'm like, this mouse borrowed dust, this phone borrowed dust. Have fun playing in your dust pile, right? Like it's like, who cares? You know,
That's a
I
good
think
one.
I think too, focusing on what you don't have kills gratitude. It kills gratitude dead. You always have more than others and you lose that perspective. It's easy to forget what you do have. And if you're killing the attitude of gratitude, like, why is that a bad thing? That turns you into somebody who can be, self entitled and resentful and lead to a whole army of disharmonious emotions. You're welcoming them into the door when you focus on that, right? That's not going to be a fun party. That's
Yeah.
going to be like a really sucky party. That's what your reality becomes because that's the thoughts that come next.
I think also, like, even in terms of your surroundings and the type of conversations you have, if you're constantly focused on what you don't have, you're also kind of like potentially imposing that on other people that they need more and kind of spreading that like a
Oh,
bad
yes.
smell.
Spreading the sickness. You're going to screw up other people so they're not grateful. You're right. You're going to screw up everyone you care about. You're spreading that disease, that thought habit that create that. First of all, this thought habit makes it so that people will always be unhappy. When you focus on what you don't have, you'll always be unhappy. Guess what? Now you're giving that despicable gift to the people you care most about because you're role modeling that thought habit and their subconscious mind is going to pick it up. If you care about these people,
Yeah.
that might not be a good idea.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Because the best way people learn and are influenced is through example. So look what kind of an example you're giving
To others.
All right. Love it. We crushed it on that one. On to question 3. On to question 3. All right. Why is it a bad idea to focus on the past?
Because then you're disconnected to what's happening now. You're not here.
100%. You are bypassing reality, right? You are not participating and engaging with reality because reality is only in the moment. It is only ever now, here and now. And you're saying, I'm not playing, right? Like that's it.
Right.
Right. So you're missing out on that quality time in the present. I think too, one of the things is that it's human nature that when we think about the past, our mind travels to past pain. That's more the habit, right?
See that.
And when it travels into the future, it explores. It has a habit of focusing on threats in the future, which creates anxiety.
So it's usually the things you don't want to revisit.
Yeah, that's the tendency.
Okay.
That's the tendency if you're not living in the moment and you're time traveling to the past. The tendency is that's how you will create depression, is almost thinking like disappointing things from the past are condemning the future to be just the same.
Okay.
Right. So there's a lot of just bad thought habits when people go to the past. I think it's important, like immediately to draw away your learning lessons from the past, what can be learned, and then just leave it. Like, don't keep reliving, it's like you wouldn't keep rereading the most boring book of your life. I remember I read like a 500-page textbook on breathing, and that thing was an immediate cure for any insomnia. Like it could just put you to sleep. I had to take it like 10 pages at a time. I would never reread that book. Same way I would never relive some of these like underwhelming moments of my past. Why? Why would I do that unless to learn from it? Right?
Right.
Yeah, we can't change it. We never grow. So all of these make it a bad idea to really focus on the past. Any thoughts on that?
Unless, yeah, I would just say like, unless like I see there's definitely value in visiting your past and maybe kind of seeing where there's areas of opportunity. Like I know a couple times we had conversations on that, and kind of like gaining the insight, trying to extract the insight from it or the wisdom, or just like, other than that, there's no other empowering way of visiting the past in that sense.
Yeah.
But
And I think so you're right in that there is value in revisiting it, but most people don't have proper form in their thinking to be qualified to do that without hurting themselves. It's like trying to lift a weight at the gym and it's too heavy for most people. So right. I'm like, look, I don't think you're at a level where you can relive the past yet. You got to work your way up, because you're just going to make things worse if you start to indulge in that thought habit right now. Right?
That's very true.
One of the best ways to live in the moment, by the way, is humor.
You told me that last time, and I can see why.
I was on a webinar last night, and I was about to say for a specific thing that nothing succeeds like excess, right? In a certain situation. Yeah. So I went to say nothing succeeds like excess, and I was like, just remember, nothing succeeds like success. And then everyone's like, whoa, I'm going to put that on a shirt. And then I'm like, what did I just say? Nothing succeeds like success? I guess that's true still, right? Like,
I hate when that happens. It's like the word is here, but it just doesn't.
I was like, this is perfect. Everyone's laughing. And I guess it does make sense still. It's just such a, nothing succeeds like success. I don't know. People must have thought crazy on that one. Excellent. Now, next question. Why is it a bad idea to focus on the bad in a situation? Why is it a bad idea to focus on the bad?
I think it just takes away all your resources to finding the solutions. If you're so like consumed by the bad, you're not looking for good. You're not looking for solutions.
Yeah. So I'm gonna use a strategy applied from you, and I'm gonna use some persuasive language here to make a compelling argument.
Okay.
The stress cripples you.
Yeah.
It cripples your problem-solving abilities. You know, you're putting yourself into a state in which you are now no longer to handle this as best you can. You're putting yourself into a bad state to deal with it. Right? Like, have you ever talked about somebody who's like super stressful and they just can't connect the dots on why they shouldn't be so stressed out? It's like, wait a minute, hold on, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, and they're just not getting it. And it's like, I'm talking to a wall. Like you've hit that point where now I just got to wait for you to burn yourself out and outlast your emotions, because nothing can get through to you right now. Right. So yeah, absolutely. And that's the state of being people put themselves in. And, you know, it makes the negatives bigger than they are. It's like holding a magnifying glass. Have you ever held a magnifying glass to like an ant? Oh my gosh, scary as heck. Like, you see an ant and it looks like a little speck traveling on the ground. You put a magnifying glass to that thing's head and you see these big jaws, like, these are like the jaws of death, and like big antennas. It looks like something out of an alien movie, right? So that's what happens when we magnify our problems. They become big and scary, like magnifying an ant. Like, if you keep focusing on what's bad about this, what's bad about this, what's bad about this, they're like, this is the worst problem ever. You know, for example, somebody can get super stressed out. I asked somebody about what was stressing them out. Like, what is stressing you out? They said, I have to make a really big choice. I didn't want to be in this situation. And, you know, sometimes life gives you situations and things just happen. And now you're in it and you got to do something. You got to do something. You can't do nothing. And I was like, okay, tell me about this stress. They're like, I have two buddies that want me to go over to their place both on the same night, and I can't say yes to both of them. And I was like, oh, I feel your pain, man. Like, such a big problem to have.
Oh, I was totally anticipating something different. I'm like, yeah, it's going to be really bad.
But when people focus on the bad, it seems big. It seems big.
100%.
In the end, they realize that, hey, maybe I can bring the one buddy over to the other buddy's house and we could all be friends. Like, what? What is this? Or just be transparent and say to the other guy, like, hey, this is my problem. Like, do you have any thoughts? I'd love to hang out with you. I've got this other buddy wanting to get together tonight too. Is there any other times that work for you? Whatever. Like, just be transparent on it. Like,
and I think like even in the conversations I have now, and even when in our conversation too, you talked about exaggerating things and kind of like painting them to be a little bit bigger than they actually are. I find that now with like a lot of conversations, like the first way that people describe things is I'm stressed. And it's just in the dialogue. I feel like in the dialogue, we just create it to be so much bigger than it actually is.
We can always correct them and say, you're not stressed. You're Monica. Okay. You're creating stress intentionally. Do you want to do that? What do you have to gain by doing that?
What do you have to gain? That's for sure.
Excuse me, crows. Can you keep it down, please? I'm trying to talk. Can you hear them? They're making such a noise out there. They're having such an intense debate outside of my door here.
The birds near my place here, like they are an orchestra in the morning. Like if I leave my window open, it's an orchestra at 4 a.m. Oh my God, the cardinals, we have so many cardinals. We have like a mom and a dad, and they're so loud.
They're quiet now.
Oh, respectful.
Thank you. They're like, that's the guy that feeds us. We better listen to him.
Yeah.
All right. So why is it a bad idea to focus on how things could get worse? Number 5. So why is it a bad idea to focus on how things could get worse? It's based on a lie. There's no evidence to support it. It's all speculation, right?
True. Because we don't know.
Yeah. A lot of the things we focus on that could get worse never happen.
So true.
You know, like 99% of our worries never manifest or something like that.
It's so true. And you work yourself up in your mind, and you work yourself up, maybe even like your friends or people around you, making a situation that doesn't even happen.
Yeah, totally. And I've seen this so many times when people are just worrying about things, and it's like, we didn't have to do that. We didn't have to have that experience. Like,
yeah,
not an experience I wanted to have, right? Like,
I didn't want to go on this ride. No,
yeah, I didn't want to watch Rocky 5. I was like, you know what? I don't really want to watch it. Like, and then somebody made me watch it. I'm like, I knew that was going to suck. Like, why did you make me watch that movie? You know, like, don't pull me into the worry drama. You know, right. Like, I don't want to do that thing, right? Like, yeah. I'm not getting involved in it, right? So why else is it a bad idea to focus on how things could get worse?
Again, it still takes you away from the present and what you can do now.
Yeah, you're manifesting negativity too, right? Which makes it more likely to come true. Yes. Stops you from living. You know, right. you could be with that same effort, you could be focusing on how things can get better, which helps you draw some conclusions on possible solutions. Like, oh, things could get better in this way. Oh, maybe I can do X, Y, Z to improve the chances of things getting better in that way. Right? So, excellent. Let's go on to question 6. Why is it a bad idea to focus on how things should be different than what they are now? So people will say things like, oh, I should be married by now and have kids. Oh, yeah. I should have my own house by now. Oh, I shouldn't be going through a divorce at this stage of my life. I should be married still. Like, why is it a bad idea to focus on why things should be different?
Because, I mean, even if you reflect to all the things that went wrong, usually they transition into maybe even your greatest blessing down the road. You can see that a little bit more clear. So we don't have the whole picture.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, so. You
know, things might be working for our benefit, even though it doesn't seem that way, is a big point. It can be a wrong judgment. We're not qualified to judge that. You know, another thing is, like, you know, if we don't accept our circumstances as they are, then we don't embrace the lessons and gifts that are being offered to us with this, you know? So I think that's a big one too. It's like, wait a minute, this is your curriculum. That's like saying like, you know, taking a class in school that's mandatory and being like, I shouldn't be here. And it's like, no, you have to learn how to speak English if you want to function in society. Of course you should be in English class, you know, like it's almost like questioning the curriculum of life, like promoting ourselves to that position where, you know, we may assume that we know enough to make those judgments, right? We don't know what's good for us, like deep down. The stuff that's good for us in life is usually like a lot of the painful stuff that creates a burn, like working out creates a burn. We don't say, oh, this isn't good for me, it hurts. Same thing, like I'm going to stop. As soon as the burn kicks in, I stop. I don't even get to that point. I lift my toothpick weights, like 1 or 2 reps, and that's it. And I go home. Okay. Don't embrace the burn, right?
Don't embrace the burn.
But that's what failure can be, a burn, right? Disappointment can be a burn, but those are good burns, because usually disappointment means that you set unrealistic expectations and you weren't basing it on reality. You were basing it on preference. And it's that is the real source of the problem, you know?
Yeah.
All right, let's go on to the next one. Why is it a bad idea to focus on what's wrong with you?
Because you can get going all day. What's wrong with you? Well, I think, again, we're not qualified to even like make that judgment. There isn't necessarily a right way to be or a wrong way to be per se. Like there's no one. Oh, I didn't phrase that properly. Where's my persuasive language? What I'm trying to say is there's no measurement. There's no like accurate measurement that you can create. So you're kind of just bluffing yourself. You're lying to yourself. And it's definitely not going to make you feel empowered. That's for sure.
Yeah, you take your power away. There's a tendency to, when we do this, there's a tendency to feel sorry for ourselves, which is a disempowering state to be in. It creates a relentless momentum, because once you start asking yourself that, you send your subconscious mind spinning in that direction, and it's going to find answers around that. In the back of your mind, it's doing it all day long. It's finding answers around that. And that's going to affect your self-image and your self-worth, which is so central to your life experience. How you view yourself because of psychological congruency will impact every decision of every moment of your life, right? Like you will get into an abusive relationship where somebody treats you like dirt because you think that's all you deserve. So you can't trust people who treat you better because you feel like they're being fake. So you trust the person that treats you like crap because that's consistent with your view of yourself. That happens because you focus on what's wrong with you. You end up in an abusive relationship that you're afraid to leave because you focus on what's wrong with you. Like that is the power of this thought to create disharmony in your life. And you forget all the amazing things about yourself, right? There's so many amazing things that we need to be paying attention to remember what we're capable of. And then what happens is when you go into that spiral and you're down in the dumps because you keep thinking about what's wrong with you, you tend to find unhealthy pick-me-ups to feel better.
Of course.
Right? And what are some unhealthy pick-me-ups, you think?
Well, even like junk food, or let's say, I don't know, like you said, alcohol.
Yeah, gambling. Yeah, lots of different things, right? Things can go downhill. It's a slippery slope when they start to ask that question.
What would you say then? I mean, if you're going down that road, what's like an alternative question you can ask yourself?
For any of these, you just give the opposite question. Why is it a good idea right now for you to focus on what's going right with you?
Okay.
I would say that. Why is it a good idea to focus on what's right with you? You have your health, you have your mind, you have friends and family that love you and support you. You have tremendous potential you've forgotten about, that when you get focused on something in life and you're 10 out of 10 motivated, how capable you are. You know, you forgot how you can be 10 out of 10 creative at times. You can be 10 out of 10 patient when you make the choice to be, right? There's been times in your life when you've gone from struggle to success and you've defied the odds and you've had laser focus and you've pulled all-nighters and you've done whatever it takes in order to achieve your goals. Let's relive some of those times, because you've forgotten who you are because you're so busy thinking about what's wrong with you. And that's such a, you know, that habit betrays your own higher principles. I can't honor you when you're doing that. That's not who you really are. Don't bluff me. You are all of these strengths and virtues. That's you. You're the golden nugget that's just been covered in dirt. You're not the dirt. Scrape that stuff off. Let that brilliance shine through from underneath. That's right. How I might respond. I'm just speaking freely off the top of my head.
That's awesome. Yeah,
I'm like, you need a reality check. Hold on. You know, like,
I got one.
I believe those words of encouragement apply to everybody, whoever's even watching this call right now. I'm talking about you with everything I just said. We all have all of that potential within us for all of that mastery of all those character virtues. All right. Good question. Now, number 8. You ready to go on to number 8?
Let's do it.
Why is it a bad idea to focus on what's going against you right now? Like, all right, what's going against us right now? And thinking about all those different factors. Why is that a bad idea?
Like you said, it'll be in your subconscious. So you're just going to be searching for that everywhere you go. In your interactions, in your environments.
Yeah. And confirmation bias means we find evidence for what we're looking for. Right? So then we're creating a big story about all these factors working against us. And a broken clock is right twice a day. So you will still find evidence to support you, even if it's wrong, right? Like, you'll find faulty evidence that will support your opinions, and your problem solving gets hindered, and it can lead to toxic self-worth and everything else. No solutions, just problems. We got more problems and no solutions now. It's just a big game of tug of war. We're giving more strength to the problem side, right?
It's a way, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, another question that leads to a lot of these emotions of mental darkness. And what I'm doing is we're going after creating a case against all the ingredients of focus.
Right.
And why they're a bad idea. Another thing is to just focus on past mistakes. Why is it a bad idea to focus on past mistakes?
I feel like even like revisiting the past, like we talked about, it could have its value, and maybe you aren't in good form to go back to it, but going back to those mistakes, I feel like naturally, like even in your subconscious, you may just find yourself making them again because you're giving so much energy to them.
Yes. Wow. You nailed it. Amazing answer. Yeah, there's a higher chance of repeating those mistakes.
Yeah.
Right? Because it takes up a lot of energy to do it. It takes up a lot of energy to do. I mean, here's the thing. You're going to spend energy either way. You can spend energy to make things worse, or you can spend energy to make things better. You're going to be spending energy, might as well get a reward for it.
Right.
Because it drains your energy to relive this stuff. Why not invest that energy in progress? Right?
Yeah.
And so I think also it's like, you know, you don't realize the effect you have on those around you when you're focusing on your own past mistakes and you're ruminating on this stuff. You're spending more time up in your head than time connecting with them. You miss out on the little things and the little moments because you're playing all this junk in your head, you know, and the things that are little become big.
Right.
You know, you can slip into depression mode and start beating yourself up. Is that really what we want? Do we want to just beat ourselves up?
No.
Yeah. And I think sometimes what I'll do with people is when they're in that kind of a state, I get them to consider themselves as a third person. Like I would get you to start talking about yourself as Monica, because then you're going to subconsciously, you always treat people better than you'll treat yourself.
Of
right?
course.
Typically. So you'd be like, all right, Monica, you know, you made that mistake in the past, Monica, but that's okay. You did the best you could at the time with what you knew. And when you know better, Monica, you'll do better. There. Okay. Right?
No, it's smart. It makes sense because, yeah, 100% we will treat others differently than we treat ourselves. But I think even then, like if you're so focused on your past mistakes, you might not even see like the people around you struggling. Like you're so focused on you and creating these scenarios that you don't see the struggle or hardship around you. Like that connection piece is gone.
Yeah, you can't help other people because you're too focused on yourself. Absolutely. You know, you can't, if you really want to help people in your life, you can't indulge in moodiness. You know, it just, you can't indulge in moodiness. That is the call. If you really want to help others, you really have to discipline yourself to eradicate all of these ingredients that create moodiness.
Which is everything we're talking about.
Yeah, all of these things. Absolutely. Now, a couple of bonus ones I'll throw in there is, why is it a bad idea to seek out evidence to support a disempowering perspective?
Because you'll always find it.
Yeah.
And
then it puts us into an ever deepening state of disempowerment. We are going further
your
into
own
the
hole.
dark woods. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going into this dark black hole of suffering. Life becomes more hopeless. Disempowerment owns a larger real estate in your reality, right? It justifies our negative thoughts or lies because we're finding evidence of this stuff. For sure. All right, question 11. Why is it a bad idea to find unhealthy pick-me-ups to feel better?
They're always fleeting and they're not the true solution. Usually. All the time, almost.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not the true solution. I mean, they're just going to soothe you, but then destroy you.
Right. It's a downward spiral. And I mean, I can't say I haven't indulged in it before, so I know what it's like. But when you look at it in the big picture of things, it's just like it's a snowball going down a hill. You're just adding to it.
Yeah. And I think the main thing is that you want to think about, you want to have a beyond the self orientation here again, and think about, when you're doing unhealthy pick-me-ups, how does that affect everybody who cares about you? It's like you're struggling to swim and you're pushing everyone down under the water, everyone around you, because that's what you do to the people who care about you. They suffer along with you, right? When you suffer, they suffer. You know, if you were going through any suffering right now, your parents would be greatly affected by it, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
If you were going through a 10 out of 10 depression right now, wouldn't life be really hard on your mom and dad?
Yes.
Of course, they would take it on too.
Yeah.
And that happens for all of us. The people that care most about us are the ones who suffer when we do this, right? They will blame themselves. They will question their self-worth. They will question that they did something to make you do that, right? And some people know this. It's funny because there is this one habit where a lot of times people will destroy their own lives to try to make the point that their parents did a wrong job of raising them. And I'm like, well, you know, that's coming from a judgment. And is there a better way to do that? Like, that's kind of like a headbutt. Like, nobody wins in a headbutt. It's just hurting everybody. You know, like, I've always thought that was the stupidest move in wrestling. It's like, I'm going to give you a headbutt. It's like, ow, my head hurts, but so does yours. Like, why sabotage your own life to get that point across?
Huh.
Right? That's headbutt philosophy. It just hurts everybody. Right?
Yeah.
Like, there's got to be a better way to make your point. Right? That's you know, pledging allegiance to that strategy. You know, there are people who have, you know, gone into like homelessness and stuff like that, and when all the layers are peeled back, they realize that that's ultimately at the root of why they were doing this with their life. Right? To get back at somebody, with their life being their message.
Wow. Yeah, never heard that.
That's why it's a good idea that we question our thoughts and our thinking, and you know, we don't assume that our best thoughts are correct just because we think them. We need to be aware of our capacity to think a bad idea is a good idea. And humility is the best thing to prevent us from doing that. Now, the next question is, why is it a bad idea to accidentally project negative thoughts onto other people?
Because you're tainting their picture too.
Yeah. How about this for persuasive language? Those negative thoughts hijack that relationship.
Now you're just on a roll.
Yeah. So it's like it brings it into a cycle of suffering. Instead of having beautiful moments, those moments become all about those negative thoughts that you have now just vomited out there, right? Like just
Yeah.
So it creates pain on those we love and care about most. It's lazy to allow our default thoughts to reign supreme, right? It's actually sloth. It's mental laziness. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. Don't let these thoughts just run rampant. Like it's just going to destroy your life, right? And when we do this and we project those negative thoughts onto others, they pick it up and you screw them up. You screw up the people you care about. Which is not
the intention or goal.
Yeah. Is that who you want to be? So I think this conversation is all about who do you want to be, right? Who do you really want to be in the human story? Do you want to be the person that complained and made their problems bigger than they were when, there's worse things have happened to much better people, but do you want to be the person that kind of acted like they were the biggest victim in the world? And do you want to be the person that led this example? Because you don't have to. This is the application of your free will. We all have free will. I think one of the best things to do with your free will in your lifetime is to seek out profound wisdom. What is the stuff you really need to know? Forget about hockey and baseball stats and which celebrities won which movie awards that were political anyway, right? Like focus on, the quality of your life is going to come down to your emotions and your thoughts, and focus on how you can raise the standard on that.
It's so true.
And so many people, they are indifferent to wisdom. They don't value it. They don't value understanding their own pain. We want to understand our own pain so that we can exchange it for something better, rather than just justifying our pain and fighting to defend it, which is what a lot of people will do because they're afraid of, they're more interested in looking right than in doing the right thing. So they'd rather suffer than admit they're wrong, right?
Like you said, it takes humility too, right? But
So now the other thing we might do is, here's about a dozen questions that we can ask somebody. Let's make a really compelling argument against all of these thought habits. I would take somebody and I'd say, we do it weekly. We just come up with answers weekly. We'd relive the conversation weekly and just chat about it on a nature walk or something like that.
Okay.
Is a good way to do it. Just be like, look, I need to keep brainstorming. I'm practicing my coaching. I'm going to be tested on this stuff. I need the best answers possible. And I need to just come up with answers every week,
I feel like if I did this with my friends, they'd be nervous. They're like, oh, she needs the best answers. I got to be like a 10 out of 10. We got to help her pass the test.
There's like no pressure, anything you can give me. Why is it a bad idea to focus on past mistakes? What you're doing is you're actually helping somebody's thoughts wire differently. Thoughts that wire together, fire together. So
that needs to be a shirt.
that I didn't say that one. That's Dr. Norman Deutsch.
That needs to be a shirt.
He's a brain expert. So, but cool. Thoughts that wire together, fire together. So it's like people start to, these different ideas start to come up when people will start to indulge in some of these thought habits. It's easier to catch yourself and notice it. And the motivation to interrupt the pattern is increased because we're now grasping the connection. We're connecting the dots. Oh, I'm indulging in this thought habit. Oh, this is why I'm always depressed at the end of the day. I don't want to be depressed. I'm going to stop this. I'm going to replace it with something else. Right? So what we would do next, and we can do this next time, is we can go into the opposite. which is, instead of why is it a bad idea, we say, why is it a good idea? For example, why is it a bad idea to find unhealthy pick-me-ups to feel better? We would change that question into why is it a good idea to find healthy pick-me-ups to feel better, right? Because we're maximizing the pain pleasure principle. We want to create leverage of an association of great pain to these thought habits that aren't serving us anymore. And we want to create an association of pleasure to the replacement thought habits, which can serve us to do the things we're inspired to do. So the combination of the pain and the pleasure together creates more motivational drive to come out of the dark woods of mental suffering here, right? Once again, these when people indulge in this mental darkness, it's like it's okay to go in there, but get the treasures of it and leave.
And get out.
Let the darkness consume you. This is all, now we're trying to navigate our way out of these dark woods. It's like, we're stuck in here and we're suffering. And this is kind of like how we create the map out, right? Okay. It's like, okay, we got to go through these 12 steps here. We got to create a compelling argument against all these. So we know it's not a good idea to think like this, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you've ever reasoned with somebody who had, they had a thought habit that just seemed so crazy. And it's like, why would you think that way? That's so crazy. But they were so unwilling to give it up.
Of course.
It's like, don't you realize this attitude is just making everything worse? And they're like, yeah, no, I'm not letting go of it. It's like, and that's because a part of them still thinks it's a good idea. And we want to get to that part. That is the part that's creating the problem. And here we're coming at it from a whole ton of different angles so that if you don't know exactly what thought habits it is, well, we're covering the whole gamut here for the most part, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So that is Luminate, the protocol on mental darkness. And I would call that, part 1 on this. And we can go into part 2 next day, which is then when we focus on like the good alternatives, right? So this is like, why do we want to, these are the thought habits that betray our happiness. We've exposed them as traitors. We've exposed them as being useless, like not good for us. So now what are we going to replace them with and how do we do that? That comes next. All right. Any key takeaways for you from today's discussion?
I would just say like painting the picture, painting contrast between why something is a bad idea or a good idea. I really liked the questions that you asked. I think they're all very relatable, and it's just, I feel like it's more empowering for you to go through why it's a bad idea and then identify why it's good, because you can kind of catch yourself in those questions and what you're feeding forward. Yeah, absolutely.
And this is something that can be practiced. Getting out these 12 questions, answering them from blank every week, just blank slate, answer them. You'll come up with different answers every week. Just answer, and make it a practice. Okay. And eventually you can find your way to this mental darkness, right? So it's a matter of just reinforcing. It's like taking a healing medicine. These are perspectives that move us out of this place, right? So, and we can do it conversationally with people.
Yeah.
If people are like, if we're trying to help people, we could be like, look, people talk about all kinds of junk in conversation, stupid movies and, popular on TikTok and whatever. I'm like, why not talk about this?
I know.
Why not have a conversation about this? This might actually do some good for people, right? So it's like that. And that's why I like to just use these questions is just make it conversational stuff that you chat about with people. And you will actually, you might present it as something you need help on. You will realize that they are helping you, because they'll give you more powerful perspectives, more powerful terminology that you can use with other people, right? So they will help you out, but in helping you, they'll be helping themselves. And then they'll realize how good it feels to help other people, which is one of the healthy pick-me-ups.
I love
losing your darkness and depression in the service of other people is such a powerful solution. All right. That being said, awesome job out there today. You've given a tremendous gift of love and wisdom to everybody who will watch this video in future, as well as yourself, right?
Of course.
As well as Monica.
What's gonna happen.
Refer to yourself in third person. It helps. So we're all in this together. It's like, hey, you know, if somebody's stuck in those dark woods, we're going in after them. We'll be lost together till we find our way out. But you know what? We got to go in there. We got it. Confusion is not a crime. Confusion is not a crime. We all get confused and we all make mistakes. So I think when people are doing things and it's not a negative judgment, it's like, why would you choose to be depressed and stuff like that? It's not a negative judgment. Confusion isn't a crime. They're just doing the best they can, and we care about them, so we want to help them. And that's what this is all about. And just as people have helped us, right? That's how humanity works better, you know?
It's so true.
And then that's how people know they're loved, and everything else is that people are out there trying to help them out, trying to help them find their way out of the dark woods, right? All right, let's do it. Absolutely. We're going to shine some light, and that light is wisdom that gets us out. Hey, look, this place sucks. There's a way out. All right. Yeah.
What's the branch?
Hey, don't forget those treasures. We're going to need that when we leave here. You're going to share that with other people, right?
For sure.
All right. Let's do go team on 3. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. 1, 2, 3. Go team.
Go team. Thanks, Brendan.
All right. See ya.